Thanks for being here and thanks for having me. Bienvenidos, Jokoso, willkommen, Aklan Bik, Dobro Pajalabat, Bitajle. Welcome to you all, our customers, investors, entrepreneurs, founders, defense architecture heads, our listeners, our new arrivals, and even our OGs for being here in the number one human efficiency podcast. This is Endure Beyond, the safe space for Apex frameworks for not only human efficiency, but the home of human expansion readiness. For those of you that do not know my voice by now, I'm Darius Riddick, and you have, since 2018, given me the opportunity, the trust, and the capability to be here to share with you all some of the most grounded work in human optimization, human performance, human enhancement, and leadership development. And the word gratitude does not speak to the level of feeling that I have to be here with you all as we're approaching the end of season 13. And as I reflect on the topics that we've discussed over the past few years and some of the hurdles that we've overcome together, some of the walls that we've had to tear down, and even some of the guardrails that we have had to build, I can't imagine myself being anywhere in any other timeline doing anything else. And, whether this goes to Mars or this will be the last episode, I want to say thank you to you all, even if this is your first time hearing me. As we close out this season, we've talked about some pretty incredible things. If you aren't aware, I highly suggest you go back and check them all out. Okay, but this season was never really about self-improvement, not in the shallow way that people usually mean that phrase. I think it was very clear. It wasn't about hacks or the biohacking culture or aesthetics, routines for the sake of routine's sake, productivity, garbage, or performance, or even motivational theatrics disguised as transformation. Season 13 was about a much larger question. What kind of human beings are required to build better worlds? And as we're seeing this rapid evolution for humankind and for humanity in this AI landscape, in the quest for potential immortality and for the pursuit of interstellar commerce and multiplanetary habitation, I think it's one of the most important questions of the century. Because whether people realize it or not, every world we build is downstream of the kind of humans doing the building. We're in a time where people are hyper focused on the tools that are being built without a real translation to help the capability of the people that are actually building them. And we want to rewrite that narrative. Okay? We want to rewrite the narrative of the family, the company, the team, the neighborhood, the culture, the mission, the institution, the nation, the frontier, and the future. All of it. All of it is touched, shaped, limited, strengthened, or even distorted by the quality of humans inside of it. So no matter how far, how fast, or how deep we go, a human-centric model will always be the focus. It has been for the Endure Beyond culture since 2018. It has been for the Dura Human ecosystem since 2022. And it will be as I continue to take my breath for this. And that is why this conversation matters. Because if the humans are weak, fragmented, ungoverned, chronically distracted, physically deteriorated, emotionally unstable, socially corrosive, spiritually hollow, even unable to carry burden, mind you, they do not remain private problems for long, i.e., all will be revealed. They become relational problems, operational problems, team problems, family problems, cultural problems, future problems. Weak humans do not remain private problems for long. No matter what AI tool, no matter what technological advancement, no matter what system or process is put in place, they become world building problems. And that is what this season has really been about. Not just becoming better for vanity, not just becoming better for applause, and not just becoming better to win in some narrow personal sense, but becoming better because the human standard behind every future matters. If we want better worlds, we have to become better humans first. And that is the season thesis. And now that we are closing season 13, I want to say it plainly, directly, and without any dilution whatsoever. Human development, or HUDAV, is not vanity work. It is civilizational work. And that is the argument. We have the ability to collapse thousands of years and compress thousands and thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of data points into subsequent actionable intel for this generation, not the next, not in 2100 or 2200, but in this generation. And if you understand that, then everything we discussed this season starts fitting together at a much higher level. The world always inherits the quality of its humans. One of the biggest mistakes people make is imagining that personal weakness just stays personal, and it does not. And if this is the first time you're hearing that, then welcome. A disordered person brings disorder into relationships, just like an ungoverned person brings instability into teams, just like a physically deteriorating person narrows what their family, their mission, and their future can ask of them. A psychologically fragile person becomes less trustworthy under strain, especially in positions of leadership. A cognitively scattered person makes worse decisions, and a comfort addicted, as we're seeing a tremendous rise in this generation, becomes less capable when hardship becomes unavoidable. An incoherent person produces incoherent outcomes. And that is not cruelty, that is not judgment, that is systems reality, because humans are not separate from the worlds that they inhabit. They are the builders of them, they are the carriers of them, they are the governors of them, they are the maintainers of them, they are the hidden architecture inside them. And so the world always inherits something from the quality of its humans. And we're entering a time where we're building technology and devices for the sake of it, not necessarily to enhance the quality of the people, which is the narrative rewrite that we're after. It inherits their discipline or their laziness, their clarity or their confusion, their courage or their avoidance, their seriousness or their drift, their strength or their softness, their cohesion or their fragmentation, their restraint or their indulgence, their standard or their decay. And that is why human development matters so much more than the culture usually allows, because the culture likes to reduce it, to make it sound like self-help, like optimization, like aesthetics, like quote unquote wellness, or like a hobby for the overly introspective or the unusually disciplined. And I think, if it hasn't been obvious to this point, that level of reduction is catastrophic because it blinds people to the scale of the issue. And the issue is not merely whether one individual feels more confident. The issue is whether the humans inside families, teams, institutions, and future missions are strong enough, governed enough, and integrated enough to build something worthy. And that is a much higher question, and that is the correct question. And as you know, we carry mental models of curiosity to answer the toughest questions in human expansion readiness. And there's no better place to do it and no better time to do it than now. And that is why we say better worlds require better humans. The season opened with a simple premise. Better worlds require better humans. And the more I think about it, the more I believe that statement is not motivational language, it is strategic truth. A better world does not appear because desire is needed in the abstract. It appears because enough humans become capable of building, sustaining, protecting, and governing one. And that means better worlds require better bodies, better nervous systems, better attention, better self-command, better judgment, better social regulation, better endurance, better recovery, better meaning structures, better long horizon thinking, better cohesion, and better willingness to carry responsibility. And as much as we want to say this is temporary, if you're anything older than the age of 20, let's even say 15, you're a decade and a half, you understand that things evolve over time, but there's only one metric that remains the same, and that is you. So why not focus on the systems that will be built, strengthened, maintained, and governed regardless of atmospheric or climate change? And that is what a better world really requires. Not only better technology, not only better slogans, not only better policies, not only better intentions, better humans, because every technology is still used by humans. Every mission is still carried by humans. Every institution is still degraded or elevated by humans. Every future is still bottlenecked by human capability. That is why I reject the idea that human development is some minor side topic. HUDEV is the substrate beneath everything. HUMEF equals a better future. It is not built by better slogans. It is built by better people. And that is the kind of line some people hear and think, oh, this is obvious. But if it were really obvious, far more people would live as though it were true. Far more people would treat strength more seriously, recover more seriously, have character more seriously, attention more seriously, sleep more seriously, cohesion more seriously, fitness, as we closed it off, our 4-part series, more seriously, self-governance, as if we haven't talked about that enough, more seriously, and meaning more seriously. But many do not, because many still think of these things as private lifestyle choices rather than civilizational shaping variables. And that is the blind spot. And I think, in fact, I know Endure Beyond exists in part to remove that blind spot. And one thing I just want to make very clear, when we get on the topic of self-governance and building the self and leadership development, and saying that it starts with the ability to govern self so they can then answer the tough questions and then pay that forward to others, it is not selfish. And that's the main confusion I want to challenge here. A lot of people still unconsciously think that serious work on the self is somehow selfish because it manifests in the language, especially public discourse. And that is if someone gets stronger, more disciplined, more focused, let's say more capable, more governed, more physically prepared, that is just some private obsession with themselves. And sometimes it is, but not when done correctly. Done correctly, human development is not selfish. Done correctly, it is extremely useful. It increases trustworthiness, reliability, burden-bearing, service capacity, and, of course, resilience. What someone can carry for other people and what they can build, protect, and stabilize and sustain. That is not selfish. That is responsible. So let's think about it for a second, because the more serious your life becomes, the more other people will eventually live downstream of your capacity and your incapacity. That's true in fatherhood, in motherhood, in leadership, in teaching, in building, in medicine, in combat, in management, in friendship, in commerce, in mission work, in any serious life whatsoever. Other people eventually live downstream of what you can or cannot carry. And that is why responsibility requires capacity. It's why the body matters, the mind matters, the self-governance matters, and it's, of course, why, as unbiased, durability matters. Because your weakness does not stay yours. Eventually, it spills. And your strength, fortunately, does not stay yours either. Eventually, it supports. And that is a huge distinction. So no, I do not think the serious cultivation of the self is inherently narcissistic. I think it becomes narcissistic when it terminates in vanity, when it stops at aesthetics, at status, at self-display, at superiority theater. But when it is connected to service, to burden-bearing, readiness, and future building, it becomes something else entirely, something powerful, stewardship, preparation, and civilizational work. If you haven't realized it by now, when you set that sort of foundation, it scales. Because one of the deepest themes of season 13 has been self-governance. And I think one reason that theme matters so much is because self-governance scales. That is one of the most important ideas in the entire season. A governed person creates different outcomes than an ungoverned person. A governed mind creates different relationships than an impulsive one, just like a governed body creates different possibilities than a neglected one. A governed life creates different children, different standards, different work, and different futures than a disordered one. And that is what I mean when I say self-governance scales. It is not private for long, because a disciplined person becomes easier to trust. The steady person becomes easier to rely on. The clearer thinker becomes easier to follow. The healthy person becomes more available to serve. The regulated person becomes less expensive to be around under pressure. And then the capable person becomes more useful in hard conditions. So think about it. That is scaling. And the opposite scales too. The reactive person destabilizes teams. The exhausted person narrows options. The healthy person creates fragility in systems that require strength. And the ungoverned person, God forbid, turns stress into collateral. And that also scales. So when I say self-governance matters, I'm not saying it because I sound noble. I'm saying it because governed humans create stronger worlds than ungoverned ones. And that is simply true. And I think one of the biggest lies of the modern age is the attempt to separate internal order from external consequence. They are not separate. Internal order produces external consequence. That is one of the laws. But the question remains, why does the body matter to the future so much if it has to pass on at some point? I think that this point is necessary because a lot of modern discourse still treats the body in one of two shallow ways. And I'm sure you listening here have heard one of these two ways before. One, either as an aesthetic object, or two, as a convenience vehicle. And the easy way to determine the difference of how it's being portrayed is to ask the question, why are you doing what you're doing? Okay? Why am I posing in the mirror, taking photos with my phone when I haven't even really put in any work? Why am I eating this food knowing that it's only going to temporarily satisfy me and cause a cascade of regret later on? Think about it. When it's treated these two ways, it's either something to display or something to drag around while the quote unquote real work happens somewhere else. And I reject both framings. The body is not trivial. The body is not infrastructure. It is a vessel. It is a platform through which the mind operates, the instrument through which labor is performed, the vehicle through which service is carried, the tissue through which burden is born, the organism through which leadership, fatherhood, motherhood, work, endurance, and readiness are all made real. And that is why capability matters more than display. That is why we talk about muscle so much and how it's strategic tissue and the difference between rest and recovery and how it's not softness and how the best of us understand how important recovery is and why durability is so important and why training for function is a much higher and more high value intelligence standard than training for image alone. Because the future will not be built by humans who are merely decorative. It will be built by humans who are capable. Humans who can think clearly, move well, recover intelligently, carry load, regulate under strain, endure discomfort, work overtime, and serve without immediate collapse. And that is what harder futures demand. And I think it is one of the greatest confusions of our time that people still imagine bodily neglect can coexist indefinitely with serious aspiration. And it cannot. Okay? One of the clear indications of a good leader is their demonstration of self-care. And we get that through when we look at you. That is why the body matters to the future, not just to appearance, not just to self-esteem, but to the future. Because we know stronger humans create stronger families, teams, and futures. This season has also insisted that stronger humans create stronger systems. And I want to return to that because it is one of the most practical civilizational truths there is. Stronger humans create stronger families. Stronger humans create stronger teams, stronger companies, stronger communities, stronger crews, stronger cultures, stronger responses to crises, whether local or global, and of course, stronger futures. Not perfect systems, just stronger systems. Because stronger human beings bring more to the system. More reliability, more regulation, more problem-solving capacity, more consistency, more useful energy, more recovery, more seriousness, more resilience, more ability to remain functional under strain. And that does not mean all strong people are virtuous. Of course not. But weakness is not a virtue either. Fragmentation is not a virtue. It's not a badge of honor. Chronic drift is not a virtue. Comfort addiction is not a virtue. Underdevelopment is not compassion, and neglect is not depth. That is another modern confusion. Sometimes people romanticize dysfunction so aggressively that they start treating discipline as severity and capability as vanity. And I think that is a mistake. A stronger person can often love better, they can lead better, they can provide better, they can think better, they can endure better, they can stabilize others better, and they can carry more without collapsing. And that matters. Because what we really want is not performative strength. We want useful strength, strength in service of something, strength that scales outward, strength that makes better worlds more possible, strength that becomes shelter, direction, protection, reliability, and hope for others. And that is the kind of strength Endure Beyond should keep talking about. So beyond self-improvement, I think one of the real achievements of this season is that it tried to move the conversation beyond self-improvement because self-improvement is too small a frame. We want to think massive. Self-improvement is too privatized. It's too consumerized. It's too easily flattened into personal branding and lifestyle theater. What I care about more is human development. And I think that phrase is stronger because it implies depth, integration, responsibility, mission, capacity, and consequence. Human development asks a harder question than self-improvement does. Not just how can I get better, but what kind of human am I becoming? What will that kind of human build? What will that kind of human permit? What will that kind of human stabilize? What kind of future becomes more possible because of the person I am becoming? And that is a much better question, because now improvement is no longer the point. Now contribution is the point. Stewardship is the point. Mission is the point. Civilization is the point. Creating better worlds is the point. And that is the frame I want to end this season with, because if all of this just ends in personal optimization, then the season would have aimed too low. But if it ends in a larger human standard, a standard of governed, durable, capable, useful, mission-ready humans, then now we are talking about something worthy. So let's come back to the title, Creating Better Worlds. What does that really mean? It means more than ambition, more than technology, more than expansion, more than building products, systems, companies, or even habitats, albeit quite enjoyable. More than dreaming about a future in abstract language, it means becoming the kind of humans who can create environments worth inhabiting. And that is the deeper meaning. Worlds are not only physical places. A home is a world. A team is a world. A culture is a world. A school is a world. A mission is a world. A future city is a world. A habitat is a world. A civilization is a world. And all of those worlds inherit something from their builders. That is why the builders matter so much. What kind of people are building this? What kind of nervous systems? What kind of standards? What kind of bodies? What kind of relationships to comfort, truth, duty, recovery, burden? Those questions matter, because every world we build will eventually begin revealing the psychology, physiology, character, and discipline of its architects. And that is unavoidable. So if we want better worlds, the work is not merely external, it is internal first. Become more governed, more capable, more useful, more durable, more integrated, more serious, more worthy of the responsibility of building something beyond yourself. That is the work. Creating better worlds begins with building better humans. And building better humans begins with telling the truth about what humans actually need to become. And that is what this season did. So let me close season 13 with this. Do not reduce this work. Do not reduce strength to aesthetics. Do not reduce discipline to productivity theater. Do not reduce health to vanity. Do not reduce self-governance to a personality trait. Do not reduce HUDEV, or human development, to content. This is larger than that. This is about what kind of humans will shape what comes next, and whether those humans will be capable or fragile, governed or reactive, durable or soft, clear or scattered, mission-oriented or comfort-addicted, able to build or merely able to comment. That is the choice. And I think the future will not be determined only by who has the best tools. It will be determined by who has become the kind of human being worthy of using them well. That is the real standard. So as we close this season, I want to leave you with a line that I think says it best. Every world we build is downstream of the kind of humans doing the building. If you want better families, become stronger. If you want better teams, become more governed. If you want better institutions, become more trustworthy. If you want better missions, become more capable. If you want better futures, become better prepared. If you want better worlds, become a better human first. That is not the whole answer, but it is where the answer begins. Creating better worlds. And remember, human development is not vanity work. It is civilizational work.